now we have a tank that will patrol until it sees the player and then chase until the player dies. The next step is to add a second action, which is attacking. So we don't want our enemy to be able to fire a bullet every frame. So our attack action is going to need a way to check a timer. And since each tank is going to need to keep track of its own timed actions, we're going to locate this in our state controller, which is the mono behavior attached to our tank. So let's return to our state controller script, and we are going to add a public function that returns a bool, and it is going to be called check if countdown elapsed, and it is going to take a float for the duration of that countdown. So we want to keep track of how much time has elapsed in the countdown, so we're going to add a float variable to our class called state time elapsed. And the reason that I'm adding this at the class level is because we're going to have another function that we're going to call to reset it. And this is going to be a public float called state time elapsed. And the default of 0 is fine. And in check if countdown, we're going to increment state time elapsed each time we call it. So we're going to set it to equal plus equal time dot delta time, the time it took to render the last frame, we're going to add, and then we will check if its value has exceeded duration. So we're going to say return state time elapsed is greater than or equal to duration. So while it's less than, it's going to return false, and once it becomes greater, it's going to return true. Now, we also want to reset this timer if we change states. So we're going to add a private void on exit state. You could just stick this in another function, but again, I just like keeping things separate like this. And we're just going to set state time elapsed to equal 0. And then we're going to call this when we change states. And on exit state, I think is kind of useful to have because there are other things that you might want to reset or update when you change states, although we don't actually need it here. Now, we are going to save this script. Save. We are going to create a new script for our attack action. So in scripts, create a C# script called attack action. And again, don't need start and update. This is going to extend action. We're going to create an asset. I find this weirdly hard to type. Pluggable AI actions attack. And we're going to override act. And we're going to call a new function, attack. Same structure that we've been using all along. Call it so I don't forget. And now, so this is going to be very, very simple to our look decision because we're going to be using a sphere cast to look in front and check if we can attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to grab all of this up to the end of the conditional. So the ray cast hit, the debug draw ray, and the sphere cast. We're just going to copy this. And this training is already going long. I don't want to just spend endless time typing stuff we've already typed before. Add our braces, and we're just going to modify this. This is going to be in our draw ray, instead of look range, it's going to be attack range. Instead of green, it's going to be red. And here, look sphere cast radius is okay. And eyes forward is okay. And this is going to be attack range instead of look range. And we're still going to check if it's the player. So we're doing a sphere cast forward to determine if we should fire our bullet. Now, if this is true, then we want to check if, so we've detected another tank with our sphere cast. We're going to use our countdown function to check if this tank is allowed to fire yet. We're going to pass in if controller.checkIfCountdown elapsed, And we're going to pass in controller.enemystats.attack rate, right? Which is a float in seconds of how often our tank can attempt to attack. And that is set to 1 in our enemy stats. And that, if that evaluates to true, meaning our countdown has elapsed, we're going to fire, we are going to call controller.tankShooting, which is a reference to our shooting script from the tanks tutorial, .fire, and we're going to pass in controller.enemystats.attackForce, which is the force being applied to the shell, and then we're also going to pass in controller.enemystats.attackRate. Let's save the script, and then back in Unity, we're going to create an attack action asset and assign it to our state. So let's go to our actions, right click, create, attack, actions, attack. This is going to be called attack action. And now in Chase Chaser, we can add a new action, and that is going to be our attack action. And that should be okay. Let's test. Let me actually save this too. Save my scene since I haven't saved in a while. All right, let's see. All right, so he's patrolling. Let's get into range. There we go. Whoop. So he's gonna kill me. It's funny how like such simple AI can actually be sort of challenging to play against. So it's working. So we can see his state turns red. His ray, we're losing sight here. His ray turns red. His debug draw line turns red, and he's shooting. You know, he's not a genius marksman. He just kind of runs at me, and but it works well enough to kill me, especially while I'm trying to talk and play at the same time. So yeah. So we've got our attacking behavior. And so now we've got a basic AI that can patrol, chase, and attack. And just as a last step to kind of show how we take this beyond the bare minimum, we're going to set up our second AI type. And we're going to do that in the next. We're going to add one more decision to the system, which is going to be our scan decision. And then we are going to set up another AI type using that scan and the other actions and decisions we've created already. And then we'll continue.